Right. Well, welcome to our church once again. This is, those of you who are watching maybe for the first time online, this is Arvada, Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I'm thankful that for the gift that God gave us. One of the gifts that God gives us is the Sabbath day, isn't it? You know, it's a good day. It's a good gift. I mean, somebody gives you a gift of time, a 24-hour period when you just for yourself.
We get it every
week. You get it every week, right? For as long as you live, right? So it's a wonderful gift, Sabbath, to rest and to go to God and to connect with Him and to talk to God and to turn over your burdens and problems. Beautiful song, by the way, talking about prayer and connecting to God. This is what we need. We need a higher spiritual level for each one of us, right? The world is chaotic. The world is violent, angry. We don't know what to expect other than bad things anymore, right? So we need God more than ever, and Sabbath day is such a wonderful gift for each one of us. And you know, sometimes you get a gift, and what do you do with it? You put it in a closet or on a shelf, or put it away, and then you never use it. Or worse than that, you take it back to the store and get some money back. Or you take your gift that somebody gave you and you give it to somebody else. So this gift is something for you, for each one of us, to be used to the maximum, to the maximum. And a lot of times, when the Sabbath is over, I think we should ask ourselves, did I make good use of this gift that I had today? Or did I waste it? And I'd like us to ask these questions in our spiritual life. Prepare for the storm is the topic of the message today. And I believe that we are going to experience a storm ahead of us. I believe, and I don't want to go through the list of all the bad things that I think are going to happen, but you think it, I think it's going to happen. Whatever the worst scenario you can think of, I think it's going to be probably worse than that. But I don't want to talk about that and list all of the bad things out there in the world. I think everybody is aware, without me listing it here. Everybody knows. There was a time in the history of this planet when this same scenario has already played out. And this was the time of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, the Bible tells us. The earth was not righteous. Human beings were not righteous. And you all know that story. I'm not going to go into it in a great detail. But the Bible tells us that the earth was corrupt. And totally relatable to today, because today everything is corrupt on every level. The Bible tells us that it was so corrupt that every human being was corrupted. The earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And if you look at the world today, I don't think there has been more violence than today at just about any time in the human history. We have had World War I and World War II, and what's going on today all over the world. In many places of the world right now, we have major wars, and this country is at war with a number of different countries at this point. I'm not going to go into that, but it's happening. It's out there. Violence is filling the earth at the time of Noah. But then the interesting verse 12 says, and God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted their way on earth. All flesh, all human beings. And, you know, a lot of times preachers will stand and talk about all of the corruption and everything else. Again, I don't want to go there because you all know what I'm talking about and what this verse is talking about. Everything was corrupt. All I can say is, the way I relate this to is to the refrigerator and bad food. And you open your refrigerator and you realize that you have food in there that's been there a little bit too long, right? And then you got to clean it out. And every once in a while, you got to clean out your refrigerator really good and wash it and scrub it and use Clorox and all of that stuff to make it clean. But why? Because everything in there is corrupt. If you buy fruits and you don't eat them, they're going to get corrupted. Milk, eggs, you name it. Meat, whatever you put in there. So this is the state of the earth at the time of Noah. Everything and everybody on the whole earth, all flesh was corrupted. And then in verse 13, God says to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh. This is a terrifying story because God is somebody, obviously, who has the power to end all life on earth. And at this point, he's saying, I have determined. In other words, God looked, he evaluated, and he said, it's time to clean out this fridge. Throw everything out. It's done. There is nothing worth saving here. Just got to get rid of it. And it was terrifying. If I'm imagining, if you're living at that time, there was a lot of people on the planet. They were all running around. Bible says marrying and giving in marriage and doing things and working and making money and getting ahead in life and providing and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden they are all sentenced to die. God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh. He said this to Noah after he looked at the whole planet and he determined that everybody was corrupt. But then he said, then there is a verse in there that says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of God. So God looked at everybody, and there was one man that found favor in the eyes of God. And this man was just. He was right. He was not corrupt. So everything was bad except this one person. And his family was going to be saved with him, probably on his account, on the account of his righteousness. So God, said, then he goes to Noah as a friend, and he says, look, I have determined to end all flesh. Why? Because the earth is filled with violence through them, through people. So people are the ones that make the earth corrupt. Humans, human beings. And you look around and you see a lot of evil people out there in this world. People who are ready to kill, murder, do anything, rape. We have seen and heard so much in the last couple, 3-4 years about everything that goes on in the highest echelons of government and power and rich people and all of that stuff. And nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. God says the earth is filled with violence through them, through people. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. God says, okay, this is it. I've had it. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It's coming to an end. But then he tells Noah in verse 14, make yourself an ark, a boat. He says, for yourself, you make yourself a boat. A lot of times, and I want to mention this as a side note, a lot of times we want God to just solve our problems outright. You know what I mean? We want a miracle, a lot of times. And sometimes God says, God lets us know what's about to happen, but then he puts us to work. You follow what I want to say? A lot of times we want God to just solve the problem immediately, like magic trick. In this case, God said to him, look, I'm going to destroy the whole planet. God didn't say, I'm just going to lift you up with clouds up in the air while all of this is happening. God said, no, you got to build yourself a boat. And you know that took 120 years. So this was a major chore, a major job. And I just want to warn us that, yes, there are times when God will do miracles. There are times when God will come through. But there are also times when God will warn us and when He will let us know what's about to happen. But then He will also involve us in doing the work, in building the ark, in protecting ourselves, our families, and frankly, I believe that God had called the Adventist church, this church and also the Adventist movement, not just to build the ark to protect ourselves, but also to bring other people into the ark. You follow what I'm saying, right? Also to let other people know about the saving power of Jesus, the saving power of Jesus Christ. That's what our job is. That's what our mission is as a church and as individual people. Noah, he was tasked with saving himself and his family, and that's why in the life on earth, animal life on earth, he was tasked with that. And I'm sure that Noah told other people about this. They didn't listen. And you know, today we are also telling people about Jesus. We're telling them about this wonderful gift of Sabbath that we have in the Advent Church that we strongly believe in. We tell people about the sacrifice of Jesus and the power of God. We tell about the relationship with God and how it affects our personal lives. We tell a lot of these things to people. We preach television and YouTube and you name it. But not everybody is listening. As a matter of fact, majority of the people are not listening. They're busy doing all other things that this world requires of them to do. But God is warning. God is telling us that something is coming. God wants us to be ready. And we already know that what's going to happen at the end times, right? When Jesus comes. So God told Noah, you got to build this boat. Why? For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. God says everything is going to go. Every human being is going to die. Everything is going to die. We're going to have a new beginning, new moment. You know, personally, I am concerned with everything that's going on in the world. I'm upset. I am looking at people who are openly talking about this idea that Christianity is not real, that God is not real, that it's just a bunch of mythology, and they are going to teach us pretty soon what it's all about and what the world is, you know. And I'm looking at all of the violence around the world, and it upsets me everywhere, all over the place. And I'm looking at the corruption and the money changing hands and children being abused by the very powerful people all over the world. And nobody seems to be paying any price for any of these activities. And I've come to the conclusion that people don't believe that God is going to hold them accountable. People don't believe that God is real. And one morning here about, 2 weeks ago, Monday morning, or I forget, I was up at our studio in the gym. We have a studio upstairs where we record our radio programs and YouTube stuff and all of that stuff. And I was thinking about this and just praying and wondering, how come so many people don't believe in God? How come so many people don't realize that God is real? How come so many people are rejecting the idea that God is watching? And on the desk there, I had a Bible in front of me, and I just opened it. I just opened it randomly. And the verse that came through, what I opened was Psalm 53. And I read the verse there that says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God." So I'm thinking about this topic. I am perturbed. I am upset about it. I am anxious about the world. I'm anxious about our church. I'm anxious about people who don't come anymore, but maybe watch online sometimes. I'm anxious about the fact that it is hard for us to, not us, but just for Christianity in general, to reach people with the gospel message. I am upset about the fact that Satan has been successful in turning so many people away from believing in God. And then I open the Bible, and the verse reads, "The fool says in his heart there is no God." They're corrupt, doing abominable iniquity. There is none who does good. Now, nobody on this planet can tell me that me reading that verse at that moment was an accident. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care if you're the professor of logic at Harvard University. You cannot tell me that this was an accident. I don't care if you have a PhD in statistics. Yeah, you can't tell me this was an accident. Because I almost felt like my hand was just being guided to open that Bible to that place. And I felt at that moment that God was speaking to me. And that He was saying, look, I hear you. I hear why you have anxiety about all of this. But the fact is, a lot of foolish people out there who don't believe in God anymore. And they are corrupt. And they are doing all kinds of bad things. And there is none who does good, just like in the time of Noah. There is a Hebrew word in there, nabal, that describes somebody who is morally corrupt, spiritually insensitive, and stubborn. Not stupid, but morally corrupt, spiritually insensitive, and stubborn. And this describes the people of today. And when you think about it, the fool is the person who lives as though nobody sees them. So many people in this world today live as they think that nobody sees them. They think that once they go and lock the door, look, your phone, your iPhone or your smartphone, it has a camera in there. And that little camera, you know what it does? It follows your eyes. And that little camera has an AI chip in there that when it follows your eyes, it can tell exactly to the millimeter where you're looking at your phone and what you're looking at. So you're looking at your phone and you're answering text or you're watching a video or you're doing whatever on that phone, and the camera is looking at your eyes and it's telling it knows exactly which word you're reading, which image you're looking at. We are talking about human technology, okay? People live today as if God doesn't see them, and yet everybody is used to the idea that human beings see every move that you make. You can't drive a block down the street without the police department and the government and some corporation who owns that camera, without them knowing who you are and what you are. They have cameras now that when you walk down in the park, the camera watches you, it takes the image of your face, it knows exactly who you are, and not only that, it has a Bluetooth and it connects to your phone and reads your emails and your text and your messages and looks at your pictures and can download the entire content of your phone to itself. That's what's going on in the world with human technology. And yet majority of the people are living as if God doesn't see them. God who has the insight and the key into your own heart, into your own mind. Of course He sees you, He knows you, He knows what you're thinking at any minute. He knows what you're feeling. He knows your anger when you get angry, and He knows your sadness when you get sad, and He knows your grief when you're grieving. And He knows your happiness when you're happy, as if He was experiencing it Himself. That's the depth of how much God is aware of everybody and what everybody is doing, and aware of you and me. God sees all. People live as if nobody judges. That's how people are living today, as if nobody's going to judge them. Not only that God sees everything, but God is going to judge everybody. People live as if nobody cares, as if nobody is in charge. And, God is in charge. He sees everything. He records everything. Nothing can be hidden. God looks down from heaven on the children of man. Why? To see if there are any who understand, who seek after God. So when God looks down at me and you, does He see a person who is seeking Him? Because you can't hide this. This is not like you go to a job interview and you have to fill out a questionnaire. And on that question, it says, do you seek God? No, it's not like that. God looks at you, He feels you, He knows you. He has the key to your inner psyche, to your every thought, to your every motivation. From the day one, that's what He has. And He can tell if you're seeking Him or not. He can tell if you have any interest in Him. This is not like human relationships where you can fake it. Where you can fake that you care about somebody, but you really don't. Or where you can fake that you like somebody, but you really are just doing it because of business or whatever else. But you don't really like them. God knows if you're really wanting to be in a relationship with Him or not. This is not like some boyfriend-girlfriend situation where somebody's faking it just because they want something and making promises. No. God knows much. God knows you so much deeper than that. So you can't hide it. He's looking.
Connect to your Wi-Fi without a password.
Pardon?
Connects to your Wi-Fi without a password.
Okay. That's right. So He's looking to see, is there anybody who understands? Is there anybody who seeks after God? Unlike idols, God is present, aware, observing, and evaluating. He does not simply glance. He examines, He searches, He evaluates. He is looking for people. God, I believe, does a rigorous research into who you are and what you are. It's not just a surface level, let me see what this person is all about. Here in this church, we all know each other, right? But not 100%. We all know each other more or less superficially. Now, if you're married, then you know your husband better than the rest of us, or your wife. But more or less everybody else, if we are not related, we know each other more or less superficially. But God, it's a different situation there. It's on a deeper level. He searches, He examines, He's rigorous. It's almost as if He is searching for the right person to hire, and He wants to know that this person is going to fit into the company. And he's going to be able to do the job. Today, if you try to get hired for one of these top companies in the world, they're going to do half a dozen interviews before they even give you a chance. They look at every detail of your life. I had a neighbor years ago, and all of a sudden I had a police at my door, and he asked, "Hey, just want to ask you a question, sir. about your neighbor. And I said, what about? And the guy says, he applied to be a policeman. And we just want to know if he's been a good neighbor and is there drinking and partying and, what can you tell us? And I say, he's a great guy. We get along really fine. And true, guy was always nice and quiet and everything else. Well, the police department wanted to know who they were hiring. You see, so God is searching, examining, evaluating each one of us. So, the point being, you cannot take God lightly. You can't just dismiss God and pretend that he doesn't know. Humanity's collective problem is that everyone has turned away and all have become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. This is very condemning. Notice the repeated universal language. No nation escapes. No culture escapes. No political system escapes. No religion escapes. God looks at everybody and everything is corrupt. The problem is deeper than bad behavior. A lot of times we focus on the bad or good behavior. The problem is that the heart, human heart, at the time of Noah, human hearts have turned away from God. Today, we are on the way where human hearts massively are turning away from God. Massively. So, that day when I was in that frame of mind, and I'm reading this Psalm 53, I felt like God was speaking to me and trying to comfort me and give me some kind of wisdom to go on. God says, do all these evildoers know nothing? Don't they realize? They devour my people as though eating bread. They never call on God. They never call on God. This is what we are facing before the second coming of Jesus. The world, that heart has been turned away, not calling on God. The challenge is not to preach the gospel to Catholics or Baptists. The challenge is to preach the gospel to majority of the planet that is completely, I would say 80%, completely turned away from God. Then we go to verses 4 and 6 and we realize that the evil is not going to overcome. Because those verses talk about what happens to people who do not take God seriously. There they are, in great terror, overwhelmed with terror where there is nothing to dread. So what happens? If you are not cultivating, if you and I are not cultivating a deeper relationship with God, the moment is going to come when we are going to experience terror, fear, anguish, anxiety, deathly fear of the future. Because in that moment, you realize that you're alone. And when that happens to people who have ignored God all of their life, and then they find themselves in that moment when they realize they're alone and there is no help coming from anywhere else, they become terrorized. And we have seen this many times. Many of us have seen this in life, where a person has been doing all kinds of crazy things, and then the moment comes when it's time to pay the price. Many times it's illness. Many times it's some kind of a personal disaster. And at that point they realize that the things of this world are not going to help them, And they realize that they don't have God in their corner either, because they have ignored Him for the majority of their life. So, as a warning today, I'm preaching this message to all of us that we need to start taking God much more seriously than we have, and also that we need to take the responsibility to do what He wants us to do in the neighborhood with the family members, with the rest of the world that doesn't know what's going to become of them. They do not realize the gravity of the problems that are coming. And then the psalm ends with God's intervention. The psalm ends not with judgment but hope. Or that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion. And we Christians, we believe that this will be fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Jesus became God's answer to humanity's corruption. Jesus is the answer to a heart that's gonna turn away from God. Jesus is the answer to somebody who has ignored and neglected their relationship with God for so long. Jesus is the answer for people who have fell into corruption and sin. Jesus is the answer for those who feel that they have no hope because of all of the things that they have done. You see, so when I look at the story of Noah, they were condemned to die. When I look at where we are today, the world is condemned to come to an end the way it is, but everybody has an opportunity to go to Jesus too. And you and I, with our own experiences and our own personal relationship with God, are the ones to relate this message to them. Jesus is real. And He needs to be real in your life. God is real. God sees everything. God cares what humanity becomes. And most importantly, God offers redemption instead of abandoning us. God offers salvation. God offers Jesus, His Son. And what's even more encouraging and hopeful is that we have examples in the Bible, one after another, hundreds of them. I just mentioned a few, where God actually sees individuals. Not just the whole nation or the whole earth. God saw Hagar in the wilderness. You remember who Hagar was, right? She was kicked out in the wilderness to die with her son. You remember who Zacchaeus was, right? He was going to be thrown away like a piece of garbage. Nathanael under the fig tree. The Samaritan woman. If you're looking at people who the society did not see as worthy, these people and so many other in the Bible, this is who Jesus died for each one of us, for the people that we don't think too highly of. You know, Jesus sees you. He does. And just like I believe that God related to me that day, and many times throughout my life, I believe He relates to you. But we have to be in the frame of mind to hear. We have to want that. God's not going to force Himself on you. We have to want it. And if you want it, you're going to hear Him. Preparation. Number one, learning God's voice. Learning God's voice. I heard God's voice that day, not audibly, not physically, but just in the movement of my hand. You understand? Just like that. It doesn't have to be text message. I recognized in that moment of the hint that God had something to say. And I think every one of us needs to take time intentionally, deliberately, to seek God's voice. And to say to God, even today, now, before this service is over, to say, to share with God that which hurts you the most, which bothers you the most, which scares you the most. And just let Him answer you in His own way, in His own time, in His own manner. When there is intention to do that, then I believe God is going to respond. And all of these other things on this list, developing character, family, building your family in a way that is going to honor God, serving others, mission of the church, they are just as important as we prepare for the second coming of Jesus. That's my message for today. Hope that it made sense. And I'm wondering, before I close, if there is anybody who maybe had a short testimony that they might want to, something that's relatable to what we just talked about.